take the railway that runs to Birmingham town. 3 hours out of Houston, they let you all get down. 11 minutes is allowed, we have to keep up speed, and the Wolverton refreshment room will answer every need.
Hi everyone, back again. Now, the layout. We'll start with the baseboard. 2x1, 25 by 50mm prepared wood. It's actually a little smaller than that because of the planing. Now, first thing you need to do is some tools. So, let's have a look at some tools. Here we are. Saw, mitre box, hand saw, big hand saw, little hand saw, whichever you want. Drills. If you can get the ones like I've got on, like the picture here, with the counter sinks already on them, that's a good little set. You get about 4 in a set, so it saves you changing over from the drill to the countersink, then back to the drill another hole, countersinking that hole. It just saves you changing it round all the time. And you can also use the countersink to set the depth of the hole as well you want. So they're a good little tool, and they're not that expensive. Hand drills and saws, if you don't have electric ones, you will need hand ones. And the mitre box is only needed if you've got a hand saw. You need, and I must stress this most strongly, when you cut the ends, they need to be square, and I mean square. Some people I've seen, they just hack them off with a jigsaw or something like that, and you can see them, they're not quite square. So when you screw the two sides on, instead of being parallel to each other, they may go like this. You know, where the angles are slightly different on each one, or it may be like this. You can't get the base square because you've angled cut it. Now, a minute fraction wouldn't worry about too much, but as long as you can get it near to square as possible by hand, is the best thing. That's why I like to use a mitre box, because you can get it very near square. If the mitre box is a little bit old, it might wobble a little bit, so get a new one. They're not expensive. Get a new one and use that for cutting the base. What I'll say is going to be what I would do, not necessarily what you have to do. It's the way I do it, and I think it's the best way of doing it myself, but everybody thinks their way's also best to doing. There's a couple of ways you need to do a baseboard. One is a flat sheet, which is what we're going to be building for this one, or you can do an open base layout. The open base is you make your framework up first, and then you put a thin piece of ply or MDF where the track is going only, and the rest of it's made up with formers and paper mache or wire, mod rock, all that sort of stuff. So that's what's called an open base work. Now, sometimes the track will be higher than the base itself, so you have to put in some uprights and then lay the track along the top of those, so you can get cuttings in or embankments on there. You could do it with an open baseboard quite easier than you can with a solid baseboard. So there's that. As we're starting with a solid sheet base, we need to make a framework up for the MDF to sit on to keep it flat and level. It's important because the better leveling you've got on your baseboard, the better the track will run locos on. You've got rough baseboard undulating all over the place. It's going to be hard for the trains to keep their balance on there, because you might get say an 060. The front wheels might be off the track. If it goes over a hump, the front wheels will be on the track, and it goes over the hump, it'll drop down and probably come off, derail. So the flatter, the better on the baseboard itself, and level, of course, because trains don't really like going uphill. They can, but they actually slow down quite a bit, especially if they're taking a heavy load. and I'll explain this when I do me branch line, because that's actually going uphill from one end of the baseboard to the other, and I'll explain all that when I'm doing it for you. Okay, so first thing we need to do is to find the wood we're using, which is 2x1, as you can see here, and we're going to start with finding which is the flattest side of the wood. Now, kiln dried timber can flex, bend, warp, whatever. So check your wood and make sure you get the straightest pieces you possibly can. If they've got a slight bend in them, use the slight bend ones for the main length of the 8x4 sheet. You know, keep a couple of pieces out for that. You can keep 3 actually if you wanted to, if you can find the 3. And the others, if they've got even a little bit of a bending or a warp like this on it, you'll be cutting them down. So that actually will straighten itself out once you start cutting it down into sections. Over an 8-foot length, it does tend to warp sometimes like that. Not much, but a little bit. But if you cut it down into sections, that's quite flat. So we want to find the flattest parts, mark them as top. Now, what I do is, because of the other 4 sections that I'm cutting up, I mark all 4 sections with the first lot, which is the 1 metre 200 width. I mark them on the top there, 1,200 minus, like in this particular case it's 35. You'd have to measure how thick the other pieces of wood that are going down the sides are, and you need to take that off the 1.2. Now, when you start cutting, cut the end off, just a little bit off the end. Make sure it's square. You can't guarantee that the sawmills are square. But they probably get them set up square. But if you've got a bit of a warp in the wood and they put it against the thing, that means the end's out a little bit as well. So I like to put it on the end, get it squared up with my saw so I know it's square with that end, and then I measure it along and make another mark at the other end, square it off, cut it, and I'll cut it slightly shy of the line so I can then put the shorter piece on there and just cut it a couple of times just to sneak up onto the line so it's absolutely perfect, right length. I can measure it with my tape measure. I always start my tape measure from the 100mm mark. That then gets transferred to the other end. So if I want 800mm, I start at the 100mm and mark it at 900mm. That's 800mm then, because I've taken care of the end of the tape. Some tapes, have I got it here? Yeah, I've got it here. This tape I've had for quite some time. Actually, you can see how it's rubbed off on the back. This piece at the end here moves. As you can see, it wobbles quite a bit. Actually, it's 3mm out this end here now, so I don't use it. I suggest you don't use it unless you get a new tape measure, brand new tape measure out of the box, out the shop, straight away. Then I'll say you can probably use it, but I would still check the measurement and then check it from the 100mm mark along to where your mark is, and see if it's actually accurate. If it is, fine, great, no trouble at all. But the first piece I do, I sneak up onto it and make sure it's exactly what I need. Then I'll use that piece of wood as a template for the other 3. Squaring up one end, make sure the 2 ends of the piece of wood that I'm using, the template on the top and the piece I'm going to be cutting underneath. Putting a little mark there, putting a square on it, measuring it with the tape again, just to make sure. Measure 3 times, cut once. That's the old adage, and it does work. So make sure it's there, the mark's on the right space, then you can cut it again, and do that 3 times, and you'll have 4 sections of wood like this. And each one's been marked with the top and the length of each piece, and I'll put these down as one. These are the one pieces. These are number one going across the section. There's 4 of them. I'm going to be using 3 to start off with. Now the long pieces of the 2.4 lengths, I've cut them down. I've cut them down to 1800 because of the space I've got at the moment. I have got enough space to put the 8 foot by 4 foot in, but at the moment I've got a cabinet in the way and I need to move that out of the way. So I've got some friends coming around to help me move it. It's rather heavy, it's a glass fronted cabinet, so I need to move it just across the room a little bit. And once I've done that, I can put the 8 foot section on there. Right, now once I've done that, I'll drill the holes in the end of the wood so I can put the screws into the cross beams. The way I do this is I use a piece of scrap of me 2x1, put it on the end, level it up with the end, make a mark, square it off, and then in that middle mark I get a pencil and I use my thumb and forefinger with a pencil between them to mark the centre line. It's a rough estimate. You can see where it's centre. You can adjust the pencil in your fingers to do this. Mark the centre line, then come in from the top and the bottom with the same mark. That will give you 2 points where you can drill holes and countersink them, which you do. Now, holding them up is awkward. I'm on my own, so I haven't got anywhere really to prop them up or screw them up. There's no way I can. My workshop is a little bit wet still, so it's drying out actually. I will be getting on with the new roof when I've known when the council says whether we're going to be staying or we're leaving. So until then, I won't be doing the roof anyway. So outside or inside, whichever you want, prop one of the 1200 mils against the wall, facing the 2 inches coming out from the wall. Do the same the other end. Lay your top section on there, the long 1800 mil one. You've drilled the holes in either end of it so that it's ready to do that. On one end, line it up with the square. Now, the square you've seen on the tools it's got a T-bar like this on it. So I'm going to use that T-bar to square up the 2 top edges. So make sure you've got the top edge on the main beam and the top edge on the beam going across the layout. Use a square just to keep them together nice and level. Then you can glue and screw the beam into place. Go to the other end, do that. Once that is there, I leave it like about 5-10 minutes. Just let the glue really suck it in and keep it there. And then you can turn it over and do the same with the other section. And that gives you an outside square of wood. I come in 600 mil because I know that's where the curve is on the outside edge of the layout itself. The one nearest the window in this particular case. I know there's going to be nothing there to be interfered with. There's no points, nothing there, so I can put that piece in there, and I'll put the 1200 piece in there, and I mark the wood with a centre line. Actually put CL on it to make sure that I know it's a centre line. So that's 600 centre from the end. I mark the bearing between the two with a centre line as well. Just using your hand and the pencil, you can get a centre line got on there quite nicely. Put that in there, drill the holes, glue it, screw it in. That's it for the moment. Now, I'll take that into the other room where I'm going to put the layout. Along the wall, I've got a radiator, so I can't really cover that up. It's got to have the air to come out the top of it. So I've done some offcuts of 2x2, which I've used for my legs, and I'll put them in the wall. They're about 300 mil each. So I'll put one at each end and one in the middle. Just above the radiator. Actually use the radiator as a level because that's nice and level in there. And I put those on there on the wall with some raw plugs and a couple of screws. I now screwed the layout to those to the edge of them, so that at the back we've got the holes coming out for the heat for the radiator. Eventually there will be a back seam board on there, so it'll keep a little box at the back so the heat can go up into the room, not onto the layout itself, basically. So I'll put a couple of screws into the wood. Actually, I need 3. I only put 2 in, but I need 3 to put in. Put the legs on there to hold them up, and then I'll put the wood on. Now, here's a picture with the wood on it. I can build me plan of my track up on this now, and where my points are that I need to keep clear, and the level crossings that I need to keep clear, I can mark them on the base, on the 2x1, so I know that to keep the beams away from those positions. So it's going to be a little bit of a 1970s artwork in there, if you know what I mean, with the beams. But I'll know where I can put the beams where they won't interfere with any of the mechanics underneath going on there. Once I've done that, I can drill some holes through to make sure I can get me bus line through underneath, and that it's going in the right places. You know, I'm not going to be too far away from where I need the buses to be. Also, I've got a second hole to drill for a second bus line, which is going to be from a PC transformer, a PC power supply. This is going to supply like 12, 5 and 3 volts for the accessories on there. One to power the windmill, power lights, that sort of thing, you know, all the little bits and pieces. It'll probably power the I don't know whether it'll power the points. Actually, it probably will power the points as well. So that's all I need to do the whole lot from one power supply, which will be screwed underneath the layout out of the way. So there's that. I think that's going to be about it for now. I'll get back to you when I start doing the rest of the beams. I'm just going to lay out the track. I'll take a picture of it where it's laid out, what I've got on there, and I'll mark all the places I need on the base. Then I can put the beams in. And once I've got all the beams in, I'll show you again what I've done. Basically, cut the beams and put them in. They're the same as what I've already told you. I might make a little video cutting one of the short beams off so that you can see exactly what I mean. Right, oh dear. So I think for now, for me and Carla, keep up the modelling. Hope I haven't bored you. See you all soon. Bye for now.
Take the railway that runs to Birmingham town. 3 hours out of Euston, they let you all get down. 11 minutes is allowed, we have to keep up speed, and the Wolverton refreshment room will answer every need.